The tavern on Nexus 7 space station was darker than most places where civilized beings gathered. Smoke from various alien substances floated in the air, creating a thick haze that made it hard to see across the room. The smell was a mix of different alcohols from a dozen different worlds. This was not a place for tourists or diplomats. This was where warriors came to drink and forget. Zarkun sat alone in the corner, his massive frame taking up most of the booth. Even sitting down, the Krithari warrior was taller than most species standing up. His natural armor plating, which looked like overlapping scales made of stone, had lost its shine years ago. Scars covered the plates, telling stories of battles that most beings could not imagine. He had 4 arms, though only 2 of them were original. The other 2 were mechanical replacements, clicking softly whenever he moved them. Around him, other veterans were sharing their war stories. A group of Velkari pilots were laughing about a raid they had conducted against smugglers. Their thin, bird-like bodies shook with each laugh. At the bar, 2 Gorvak soldiers were comparing scars, their thick gray skin marked with old wounds. Everyone was trying to prove they were the toughest warrior in the room. I took down 3 Zalathi fighters by myself, boasted a young Velkari, his feathers puffing up with pride. Their shields meant nothing against my plasma cannons. That is nothing, interrupted a Gorvak, his voice deep and rumbling. I survived 2 weeks on a death world with no supplies, killed a pack of razor wolves with just my combat knife. The stories grew bigger and more unbelievable as the night went on. Each warrior tried to top the last story. They talked about impossible odds, clever strategies, and enemies that ran away in fear. The alcohol made their tongues loose and their memories fuzzy. Through it all, Zarkun remained silent. He drank his bitter ale slowly, using one of his mechanical arms to lift the heavy mug. The other veterans knew who he was. Everyone knew about Commander Zarkun of the Krithari Empire. He had more confirmed kills than anyone in the tavern. He had fought in more wars than most of them had years of life. But he never talked about it. "Hey, old scaleback," called out a young Velkari, clearly drunk on liquid courage. "You have been sitting there all night like a statue. Why don't you share a story? Surely the great Commander Zarkun has tales that would put ours to shame." The tavern grew quieter. Others turned to look at the Krithari veteran. Even the bartender, a 6-eyed Reelan, stopped cleaning glasses to listen. Zarkun's 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on his face, focused on the young Velkari. "I do not tell stories for entertainment," he said, his voice like grinding stone. "Come on," pressed another warrior, a Gorvak who had been bragging earlier. "We have all heard rumors about your campaigns. The siege of Tarkon Prime, the battle of the Void Gates, you must have amazing stories." "Amazing?" Zarkun repeated the word slowly, as if tasting something bitter. "That is not the word I would use." The young Velkari would not give up. He had drunk too much and wanted to impress his friends. "I heard you fought in the Terran Contact War, the one with the humans. They say Earth soldiers are weak, just soft mammals with thin skin and brittle bones. 1 heart, 2 arms, no natural weapons. How hard could they be to fight?" The tavern went completely silent. Every veteran who had been in space for more than a decade knew that name, Earth, humans, Terra, different names for the same nightmare, Zarkun's. Mechanical arms clicked loudly as his hands tightened into fists. The sound echoed in the quiet tavern like breaking bones. His natural arms reached up and touched old scars on his chest armor, scars that looked different from his others. These scars had been made by primitive weapons. Kinetic weapons. Human weapons. Weak, Zarkun said, and several veterans moved away from him. They had never heard that tone in his voice before. It was not anger. It was something worse. It was fear. "You think humans are weak?" He stood up slowly, his full height making even the other large species look small. "Let me tell you something, little bird. My battalion had a name for humans. We called them the Nightmare Species. Do you want to know why?" The young Velkari's feathers flattened against his body, a sign of fear, but he nodded. He had asked for a story. Now he had no choice but to listen. Zarkun walked to the center of the tavern. His mechanical foot made a metal clicking sound with each step. Every eye followed him. Even the smoke seemed to part around his massive form. "I was young once," he began, his 4 eyes looking at something far away, something in the past. "I was like you, proud, confident. I thought the Krithari were the strongest warriors in the galaxy. We had conquered 40 systems. No one could stand against our technology and our strength." He held up one of his mechanical arms. The metal gleamed dully in the dim light, This arm was taken by a human child. A child no bigger than your head, little bird. She was protecting her younger brother. She had made a bomb out of mining equipment and fertilizer. Fertilizer! Do you understand? They turned farming supplies into weapons that could kill Krethari warriors. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered on the floor, but no one moved to clean it up. But I am getting ahead of myself, Zarkun said. You want to know about humans? You want to know why species 3 times their size fear them? Why the Galactic Council gave them a seat after only 5 years of contact, when most species wait centuries? He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every warrior present. It is because humans do not fight like us. They do not fight for glory or conquest or even survival. They fight like something is trying to take their young. Every single one of them, all the time. The Gorvak who had been bragging earlier spoke up, his voice uncertain. But they lost the war. The Krethari won, Zarkun laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was the sound of someone who had seen too much. One, we had 200 ships. They had 50. We had soldiers trained from birth. They had miners and teachers and engineers. We had plasma weapons and shield technology. They had guns that threw metal and bombs made from spare parts. And when the war ended, we had lost 80% of our fleet. They had lost 30%. He paused, letting that sink in. And then at the treaty signing, we learned the truth. They had only activated 30% of their military. They had weapons they had not used. Billions of soldiers they had not called. We did not win. They let us live. The tavern was so quiet that everyone could hear the hum of the station's life support systems. So yes, Zarkun said, returning to his seat. I will tell you about fighting humans. I will tell you about the Terran Contact War. But not because it is an amazing story. I will tell you so you understand. When you meet humans, you will meet the friendliest, kindest species in the galaxy. They will trade fairly. They will share their technology. They will even protect you if you are their ally. He took a long drink from his mug. But if you threaten them, if you hurt their young or attack their worlds, you will learn why every veteran in this room goes quiet when someone mentions Earth. You will learn why the nightmare species is the perfect name for them. The young Velkari was shaking slightly. You are exaggerating. No species could be that dangerous. From across the room, an old Zalathi spoke up. His voice was raspy and quiet, but everyone heard him. I was at Station 9 when the humans came to rescue the Orlani refugees. Pirates had taken 500 civilians hostage. The humans sent one ship. 12 human soldiers killed 60 pirates, saved every hostage, and then apologized for the mess. I saw a human female carry 3 Orlani children on her back while shooting pirates with perfect accuracy. She had been shot 4 times. She did not stop until the children were safe. Zarkun nodded slowly. The year was 2387 Earth calendar. I was a squadron leader, young and proud. My unit was sent to secure a mining colony on Kepler 442b. It should have been simple. It was just a few thousand human civilians, miners and their families. We thought it would take 1 day. He laughed again, that terrible sound. It took 3 months. And it was not a victory. It was an education. An education in why humans are the most terrifying species in the known galaxy.
Kepler 442b was supposed to be empty.
That was what the Krethari scouts had reported. A planet rich in rare minerals, perfect atmosphere for Krethari colonization, and no intelligent life. The Empire had already started sending colony ships when they discovered the truth. Humans had arrived first. Zarkun remembered the day perfectly. Every detail was burned into his memory like scars on his armor. His squadron of 50 warriors stood ready in the deployment bay of their warship. Their plasma weapons were charged. Their armor was polished to a mirror shine. They were the pride of the Krethari military. Remember, Zarkun had told his soldiers, these humans are primitive. They have only been in space for 50 years. Show them our strength and they will surrender. We may not even need to fire a shot. How wrong he had been. The human mining colony was smaller than expected. Maybe 3,000 people, including children. It was built around a massive mining pit, where humans had been pulling rare crystals from deep in the planet's crust. Simple metal buildings clustered together like a nest. No defensive walls. No military structures. Just homes, a school, a medical center, and the mining equipment. Zarkun's squadron landed in the town square. 50 Krethari warriors in full battle armor, each standing 3 meters tall with forearms carrying plasma rifles. They expected the humans to run, to scream, to surrender immediately. Instead, a small group of humans walked out to meet them. The one in front was an older human male with gray hair and dark skin. He wore simple cloth clothes, no armor at all. He was smiling. "Hello," the human said in accented Krathari. He had learned their language. "I am Governor Chen. Welcome to New Singapore. How can we help you?" Zarakun was confused. These humans showed no fear. The warriors behind Governor Chen were not even armed. There were males and females, all different colors, all so small and fragile-looking. One female was holding a baby. "This planet belongs to the Krathari Empire," Zarakun announced, his voice amplified by his helmet speakers. "You will evacuate immediately. You have one rotation to gather your belongings and leave." Governor Chen's smile faded, but he remained calm. "I think there has been a misunderstanding. We have been here for 8 years. We have colonial rights under Galactic Council law. We filed all the proper paperwork. Would you like to see our documents?" "The Krathari Empire does not recognize human claim," Zarakun replied. This was going exactly as planned. Show strength, make demands, watch them crumble. You will leave or you will be removed. "We have families here," Chen said, his voice still reasonable. "Children. We have built homes. Surely we can come to an agreement. The planet is large enough for both our peoples. We only need the mining area." Behind Chen, more humans were gathering. Workers were coming out of the mines, their clothes dirty from labor. Parents were picking up children from the school. They all watched the Krathari warriors with expressions Zarakun did not understand at the time. It was not fear. It was calculation. "There will be no negotiation," Zarakun said. To make his point, he fired his plasma rifle into the air. The green energy bolt screamed overhead and exploded against a distant cliff face, leaving a smoking crater. The baby in the woman's arms started crying. What happened next occurred so fast that Zarakun's combat recorder could barely capture it all. A young human male, probably a teenager, threw a rock, not at the warriors but at their shuttle, hitting the engine panel. It was a perfect throw, impossibly accurate for something without targeting systems. The Krathari warrior nearest to the young human, a soldier named Torvin, reacted on instinct. He swung his rifle around and fired. The plasma bolt hit the teenager in the chest, burning through him instantly. The boy fell backwards, dead before he hit the ground. For one heartbeat, everything was still. The crying baby went silent. The gathered humans stood frozen. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then Governor Chen said one word. Just one word that Zarakun would never forget. No. It was not a scream, not a cry of anguish. It was a statement, a decision, a declaration that something had changed forever. The transformation was instant. Every human face went from calm to something else, something Zarakun had never seen before. Their eyes, those strange white and colored eyes, went hard like stones. Their soft faces somehow became predator masks. The crying baby's mother passed her child to another woman and picked up a mining drill that was leaning against a building. It was not a weapon. It was a tool for breaking rocks. In her hands, it became something else. Governor Chen stepped forward, and when he spoke again, his reasonable diplomat voice was gone. "You just killed a child." Mark Wong was 17 years old. He was going to study engineering. His parents are standing right there. Chen pointed to a human couple. The female was holding the male back. The male's face was doing something strange. Water was coming from his eyes, but his expression was not sad. It was something far more dangerous. "Leave now," Chen said, "and this ends here. Stay, and we will make you understand why humans have a saying. Never attack someone who has nothing left to lose." Zarakun laughed. It seemed absurd. 50 armed warriors against a few thousand civilians with mining tools. "You threaten us? You have no weapons, no ships, no chance of victory. No weapons?" Chen looked around at his people. "We are standing in a mining colony. Everything here is a weapon. We crack mountains open. We harvest ore from stone. We survive in conditions that would kill most species." He stepped closer, this small, fragile human walking toward a Krathari warrior without fear. "And you just gave us a reason to fight." Zarakun ordered his warriors to advance. They moved in perfect formation, weapons raised. The humans did not run. They did not even step back. They spread out, moving with a coordination that should have been impossible without military training or communication devices. The first attack came from above. Humans on the rooftops had mining charges, small explosives used to break rocks. They threw them down at the warriors. The explosives were not powerful enough to penetrate Krathari armor, but they caused confusion, smoke, and noise. Then the humans did something that haunted Zarkun's dreams for years. They attacked in waves, but not military waves. Family waves, parents and children fighting together. When a warrior would aim at a child, the parent would attack with suicidal fury. When a warrior focused on the parent, the child would strike at vulnerable joints with mining tools. A human woman, no bigger than a Krathari's leg, jammed a drill into a warrior's knee joint. The drill was meant for rock. It went through armor joints like they were made of paper. When the warrior fell, 3 human children jumped on him using hammers on his helmet sensors. The Krathari were warriors. They were trained to fight soldiers, to battle armies. They were not trained for this. They were not trained for a grandmother with a welding torch, cutting through armor while singing something called a lullaby. They were not trained for a father who had just lost his son, running straight at plasma fire, carrying mining explosives, screaming about justice. The battle in the square lasted 17 minutes. When Zarkun called for retreat, he had lost 8 warriors, dead or disabled by humans with mining equipment. The humans had lost 43 people. But as the Krathari ran to their shuttle, Zarkun saw something that taught him his first lesson about humanity. The humans were already caring for their wounded and gathering their dead, but they were also doing something else. They were learning. A young human was examining a dropped plasma rifle, taking it apart with the same tools she used to repair mining equipment. Others were looking at the armor pieces that had been damaged, studying weak points. As the shuttle lifted off, Zarkun saw Governor Chen standing in the square. The old human was covered in green Krathari blood. He was holding the dead teenager, Mark Wong, and he was looking up at the shuttle with eyes that promised something terrible. Back on the warship, Zarkun's commander was furious. "You retreated from civilians? You are Krathari. You are warriors of the Empire." "They are not civilians," Zarkun said, still trying to understand what he had seen. "They are something else. When we killed their young, they changed. They became..." He struggled for the right word. "They became weapons. Living weapons. We need to call for reinforcement." The commander laughed. "Reinforcement? To fight miners? No. You will return tomorrow with the full battalion. 200 warriors. You will take that colony, and you will teach these humans what it means to oppose the Krathari Empire." Zarkun wanted to protest. Something deep in his warrior instincts was screaming danger, but he was a soldier. He followed orders. That night, the Krathari sensors picked up activity in the human colony. They were not evacuating. They were not surrendering. They were building things, converting mining equipment into something else. The children were being moved to the center of the colony. The adults were taking positions. They were preparing for war, and they were teaching their children how to make weapons from farming equipment. 3 months after the incident at the mining colony, Zarkun stood in the command center of New Brasilia, the largest human colony world his battalion had tried to occupy. The city should have been theirs within a day. It had been 90 days, and they controlled less than half of it. Outside the reinforced windows, the city burned. Not from Krathari weapons, but from human resistance. They would rather destroy their own buildings than let the Krathari have them. Every street was a battlefield. Every building was a fortress. Every human was a potential warrior, sir, reported Torvin, one of his surviving officers. The young warrior's armor was patched with field repairs, no longer the shining symbol of Krathari power it had been. "We lost another patrol in Sector 7, all 12 warriors." "How?" Zarkun asked, though he already knew there would be no simple answer. "There never was with humans. Torvin hesitated. "They used the sewage system, sir. They flooded the tunnel with waste, then set it on fire when our warriors were trapped. The methane gas. Our warriors suffocated inside their armor." Zarkun closed all 4 of his eyes. Sewage. The humans had turned their own waste disposal system into a weapon. Every day brought some new horror, some new impossible tactic that no civilized species would ever consider. "And the warriors' equipment?" he asked. "Gone, sir. The humans took everything. Weapons, armor, even the communication devices. That is the 43rd patrol we have lost this way. 43 patrols. Over 500 warriors dead or missing in a city that should have been easy to control. The humans had started with hunting rifles and improvised explosives. Now they had Krathari plasma weapons. modified in ways that violated every safety protocol, turning them into bombs as often as guns. The door burst open, and another officer rushed in. His name was Yarrick, and his left arms were both gone, replaced with temporary prosthetics. Humans had taken them with something called a chainsaw, a tool for cutting trees that they had somehow turned into a close combat weapon. "Commander, you need to see this," Yarrick said, activating a hologram projector. The image showed a group of human children, maybe 20 of them, not more than 10 years old by human standards. They were in what looked like a school classroom. But instead of learning mathematics or language, an adult human was teaching them how to build explosives from cleaning supplies. "This was recorded an hour ago," Yarrick explained. "They are teaching their young to fight." "Children, sir. They are making their children into weapons." Zarkun watched the recording. The human teacher, an elderly female with white hair, was showing the children how to mix chemicals. She was gentle, patient, like she was teaching them to paint or sing. But she was teaching them to kill. One child raised her hand. "Mrs. Martinez, what if we run out of chemicals?" The teacher smiled. It was a warm grandmother smile. "Then we use whatever we have, dear. Remember, anything can be a weapon if you are creative. Even your pencil can save your life if you know where to strike." The children nodded seriously and took notes, taking notes on how to kill Krithari warriors. "Turn it off," Zarkun ordered. He could not watch anymore. But the real nightmare was not the children learning to fight. It was what happened when the Krithari tried to stop being gentle. When they stopped trying to minimize casualties and started using real force. It had been 2 weeks ago. After losing another patrol, the battalion commander had ordered a full strike on a residential block suspected of harboring resistance fighters. 60 plasma cannons opened fire, turning the entire block to molten glass and ash. 300 humans died in seconds. The Krithari expected this show of force to break human spirit. Instead, something else happened. The humans got quiet. Not the quiet of surrender, but the quiet of decision. The next day, every Krithari food supply in the city was poisoned. Not with some exotic toxin, but with simple rat poison that the humans had been using for pest control. 17 warriors died before they realized what had happened. Then came the broadcasts. The humans had taken over the communication systems and played audio recordings on repeat. The sounds of the 300 humans dying, their screams, their last words, their children calling for parents who were already dead. They played it constantly on every frequency, making it impossible for the Krithari to communicate without hearing the death they had caused. But the worst part was the hunting. Humans, Zarkin learned, were persistence hunters in their primitive past. They would chase prey for hours, days even, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. They had not lost this ability. They had refined it. Human resistance fighters would identify a Krithari warrior and follow him. Not attack, just follow. Always visible, always just out of range. They would follow in shifts, fresh humans replacing tired ones. But the Krithari warrior could not rest, could not sleep, could not remove his armor. After 3 days of this, most warriors would break. They would make mistakes, get separated from their unit. And then the humans would strike. Not to kill quickly, but to wound, to make the warrior call for help, to make his squad come running into an ambush. "Sir," Torvin interrupted his thoughts. "We have another situation." Zarkun looked up to see a live video feed. It showed a Krithari warrior, Private Morek, standing in the middle of a street. Around him were at least 50 humans, but they were not attacking. They were just standing there. Men, women, children, all watching him. "What are they doing?" Yarrick asked. "Psychological warfare," Zarkun answered. He had learned the human term. It meant attacking the mind instead of the body. Private Morek was turning in circles, pointing his weapon at different humans, but they did not react. They just stared. Then one of them, a small human child, walked forward and placed a flower at the warrior's feet. A white flower. Morek panicked and fired. The plasma bolt vaporized the flower and left a crater in the street. The child did not run. She just looked at him with those strange human eyes and said something in their language. The translator picked it up. "We forgive you," Private Morek broke. He threw down his weapon and ran, leaving his position, abandoning his post. The humans did not chase him. They just picked up his weapon and walked away. "Get him back," Zarkun ordered, but he knew it was too late. Morek would never fight again. The humans had broken him without throwing a single punch. An alarm started blaring. "Breach in Sector 4. Someone shouted. "They are inside the command center." Zarkin grabbed his weapons, but before he could move, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Then they heard it. Music. Human music playing through the speaker system. Something they called Beethoven's Symphony No. 7. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. The attack came from everywhere at once. Humans crawling through ventilation shafts, rising from maintenance tunnels, dropping from ceiling panels. They had been inside the command center all along, waiting. The battle was chaos. Plasma fire in close quarters. Krathari warriors swinging all four arms. Humans throwing improvised grenades made from food cans and industrial adhesive. The beautiful music playing over it all, mixing with screams and explosions. Zarkin found himself face to face with a human female. She was young, maybe 20 human years, wearing the remains of what had been a nurse's uniform. Half her face was burned from plasma fire, probably from the residential block they had destroyed. She was holding a piece of metal sharpened into a blade. She was smiling. "For New Brasilia," she said in perfect Krathari. She attacked with a fury that should have been impossible for her size. The blade found gaps in his armor that she should not have known about. But she knew. They all knew. They had been studying Krathari armor for 3 months, learning every weakness. Zarkun managed to grab her with his lower arms, lifting her off the ground. She weighed nothing. He could crush her easily, but she did not stop fighting. Even held in the air, she drove the blade into his upper arm's joint, severing control cables. The arm went dead. He threw her against a wall. The impact should have killed her. She got back up. One of her arms was clearly broken, hanging at an impossible angle. She switched the blade to her other hand and came at him again. This was the true horror of fighting humans. They did not stop. Breaking their bones did not stop them. Destroying their homes did not stop them. Killing their loved ones did not stop them. It just made them fight harder. She managed to damage his other upper arm before his plasma shot finally stopped her. As she fell, still smiling, she said something in her language. The translator told him later what it meant. Worth it. When the attack was finally repelled, Zarkun counted the cost. 23 warriors dead, 40 wounded. The command center was in ruins, and the humans had stolen the entire database of Krathari technology. Within a week, they saw the results. Humans had reverse-engineered Krathari shield technology. Not perfectly, but enough. They had figured out the frequency modulations. Their primitive kinetic weapons could now penetrate Krathari shields. How? Yarick asked, looking at the reports. It took our scientists decades to develop shield technology. They did it in days. Because, Zarkun said, finally understanding, for them this is not a war. This is survival, and humans, I am learning, are very good at surviving. That night, as Zarkun tried to rest, he heard them. The humans were singing. The pride of the Krathari Empire floated in perfect formation near the edge of the human solar system. 200 warships, including 3 dreadnoughts that had never known defeat. Each dreadnought was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could crack moons. This was not an occupation force. This was an execution fleet sent to end the human threat once and for all. Zarkun stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Eternal Conquest. His commander, Admiral Thekvar, surveyed the tactical displays with satisfaction. Against them, the humans had gathered 50 ships. Most were converted cargo vessels and mining ships, hastily armed with weapons that should not have been able to scratch Krathari shields. Look at them, Admiral Thekvar said, his forearms gesturing dismissively at the human fleet, scrap metal held together with hope and stupidity. This will be over in minutes. Zarkun said nothing. He had learned not to underestimate humans. His 2 mechanical arms, replacements for the ones lost in ground combat, clicked nervously. Something was wrong. The human ships were not running. They were not even moving into defensive positions. They were just floating there waiting. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, "I am detecting unusual readings from the asteroid field." The human solar system's asteroid belt was still millions of kilometers away, but the Krathari sensors were picking up energy signatures. Hundreds of them, thousands. What kind of energy? The Admiral demanded. "Nuclear, sir. Primitive fission reactions. They appear to be moving." Before anyone could respond, space lit up with fire. The humans had turned asteroids into weapons. Thousands of nuclear engines strapped to rocks, turning them into guided missiles. They came from every direction, a swarm that darkened the stars. All ships evasive action, Admiral Thekvar commanded. Shields to maximum. The Krathari fleet scattered, their perfect formation breaking apart. Plasma beams lashed out, vaporizing hundreds of asteroid missiles. But there were too many. For every one destroyed, 10 more kept coming. The first asteroid hit a destroyer on the fleet's edge. The nuclear engines detonated on impact, and while the explosion could not penetrate the shields, the kinetic force of a 1,000,000-ton rock traveling at relativistic speed could. The destroyer crumpled like paper and exploded. Impossible, the Admiral breathed. The calculations required. The precision, sir, Zarkun said, watching his displays. The human fleet is moving. The 50 human ships had split up, diving into the chaos of the asteroid swarm. But they were not attacking. They were doing something else. Each ship was releasing smaller objects. Hundreds of them, fighters, the sensor operator guessed. No, Zarkun said, his 4 eyes widening in horror. Those are civilian ships, shuttles, transport pods. Escape vessels. They have turned everything into a weapon. The small ships were on collision courses, hundreds of tiny kamikaze vessels, each with a human pilot. The Krathari's targeting systems, designed for large military vessels, struggled to track so many small objects. Then the broadcast started. Every human ship was transmitting on open channels. Not military codes or tactical data. Personal messages. Humans saying goodbye to their families. Maria, I love you. Tell the children their father died for their future. Mom, remember me as I was. Remember that I was brave. This is for Earth. This is for humanity. We do not go gentle. The voices filled the bridge. Hundreds of humans, knowing they were about to die, using their last moments to say farewell. It was psychological warfare at its most devastating. These were not soldiers dying in battle. These were fathers, mothers, children choosing to die. The first suicide shuttle hit the Eternal Conquest shields. The explosion was small, insignificant. The shields held easily. Then the second hit. Then the third. Then dozens at once, each impact weakening the shields a little more, forcing the generators to work harder. They are overloading our shield generators, the engineering officer reported. If this continues, then destroy them all, Admiral Thekvar roared. Every last one! The Krathari fleet opened fire with everything they had. Space became a storm of plasma fire and explosions. Human ships died by the dozens, but they kept coming. And now the main human fleet was attacking too. The human warships were using tactics that made no sense. They would fire their weapons, then ram. They would lose all power, drift like debris, then suddenly come alive when a Krathari ship got close. One human destroyer actually split itself in half, separating into 2 pieces that could attack from different angles. How are they doing this? Admiral Thekvar demanded. Zarkun watched a human cruiser take 17 direct plasma hits. Its hull was molten, half the ship was gone, but it was still firing. Still moving. Then he understood. They have multiple command centers, he said. Multiple power cores. Every section of their ships can operate independently. They built their ships to keep fighting even after they are destroyed. The battle had been going for an hour. The Krathari had destroyed 30 human ships, but they had lost 40 of their own. The impossible was happening. The mighty Krathari fleet was losing. Then the humans did something that changed space warfare forever. A human battleship, the Jerusalem, had been hit multiple times and was dying. Its engines were gone. Its weapons were silent. It was drifting toward the Krathari dreadnought Immortal Rage. The Krathari ignored it, focusing on active threats. The Jerusalem exploded, not from Krathari fire. The humans had detonated their own fusion core. But this was not a normal core breach. They had somehow turned their entire ship into a shaped charge, directing all the energy of the explosion in one direction. The blast tore through the Immortal Rage's shields like they were not there, and ripped the dreadnought in half. 3 billion tons of Krathari engineering, destroyed by a dying human ship. They are all doing it, someone whispered. It was true. Every damaged human ship was now a potential bomb. They would drift close, playing dead, then detonate. The Krathari could not tell which wrecks were harmless and which were weapons waiting to activate. The sensor operator was crying, a sound Zarkun had never heard from a Krathari warrior. Sir, I am picking up life signs from the destroyed human ships. They They have survivors in emergency suits, floating in space, so? Admiral Thekvar snapped. They are still fighting, sir. The humans in spacesuits are attaching explosive charges to our ship's hulls. They are using their last minutes of air to continue the attack. Zarkun moved to the observation window and magnified the view. He could see them. Human figures in emergency suits floating in the void, dying from cold and lack of air, using their last moments to attach mines to Krathari vessels. Some were using handheld tools to cut into hull breaches. Others were literally throwing themselves into engine exhausts, their bodies becoming debris that would damage internal systems. One human, his suit clearly ruptured and venting air, was writing something on a Krathari destroyer's hull with what looked like industrial paint. He finished just before he died. It said, "Remember Earth, monsters," Admiral Thekvar said. "They are monsters." "No," Zarkun corrected. "They are parents protecting their young. This is what humans do when their home is threatened." The battle turned into a nightmare of mathematics. The Krathari were winning in pure numbers, but the cost was catastrophic. For every human ship destroyed, 2 or 3 Krathari vessels were crippled or destroyed. The humans were trading their lives for kills, and they were getting a good exchange rate. Hour 3 of the battle, the Krathari fleet was down to 120 ships. The humans had 15 left. Victory was certain, but it would be a hollow one. Then the sensors detected something new. Ships coming from Earth, hundreds of them. Reinforcements? Admiral Thekvar asked hopefully. Maybe they could still win decisively. Zarkun studied the readings. These were not warships. They were civilian vessels. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining ships, research vessels, even what looked like a hospital ship. Every human ship that could fly was coming to fight, and they were broadcasting. Not military communications, but music. Human music from every culture, every nation. War songs and lullabies, symphonies and folk melodies. The sound of a species that was preparing to die together. "Sir," the communications officer said quietly, "the human admiral is requesting communication." On the screen appeared a human female, old by their standards, wearing a simple uniform. Half her face was scarred from burns. She was missing an arm, but her remaining eye was sharp and clear. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen," she said, "daughter of Governor Chen, who you murdered at New Singapore. I am here to offer you terms." "Terms?" Admiral Thekvar laughed. "You have 15 ships. We have over 100. "You are in no position to offer terms," Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You have 120 ships. We have 8 billion humans, each one willing to die to stop you. Look at your casualties. Look at what 50 ships cost you. Do you want to see what 1,000 ships will do? 10,000? We will turn cargo ships into bombs. We will strap engines to space stations and ram them into your worlds. We will teach our children to hate you with their first breath and kill you with their last." She paused, letting that sink in. "Or," she continued, "you can leave now. Go back to your empire and never return. Tell them that humans are not worth the cost. We will not pursue. We will not seek revenge." The tavern on Nexus 7 was completely silent. Every warrior, veteran, and soldier in the room stared at Zarkun as he finished describing the battle. His mechanical hands rested on the table, still clicking softly in the quiet. The young Velkari who had asked for the story looked sick, his feathers flat against his body in distress. "You are lying," the Velkari said, but his voice was weak, uncertain. "No species could be that savage, that relentless." From across the room, an old Zalathi warrior spoke up. His scales were almost white with age, and he was missing 2 of his 6 limbs. "Everything he says is true. I was at the treaty signing. I saw what happened next." Zarkun nodded to the old warrior and continued his story. The treaty negotiations were held on a neutral station, observed by the Galactic Council. It had been 2 weeks since the battle, and Zarkun had been chosen to accompany Admiral Thekvar as a witness. His experience fighting humans on the ground made him valuable, though the memories made him wish he could refuse. The human delegation was small. Just 5 people. Admiral Sarah Chen led them, still missing her arm, still carrying her scars. With her was a young male who looked familiar. It took Zarkun a moment to realize why. He looked like Mark Wong, the teenager killed at New Singapore. This was his brother. "You brought a child to negotiations?" Admiral Thekvar had said, his tone dismissive. "I am 18, the young man said calmly. "Old enough to fight?" Old enough to die. Old enough to speak for those who did. He pulled out a datapad. I carry the names of every human who died in this war. 43,217 people. I will read each name if you require it. That will not be necessary, the Galactic Council mediator said quickly. The mediator was a Kalani, a species known for neutrality. We are here to discuss terms of peace. The negotiations should have been simple. The Krithari had lost and would withdraw all claims to human territories. But the humans brought something unexpected to the table. We have a gift, Admiral Chen said. She gestured to one of her companions who brought forward a case. Inside was medical equipment. This is regeneration technology. We developed it during the war to save our wounded. It can regrow limbs, repair organs, even restore severe neural damage. She looked directly at Zarkun, at his mechanical arms. We would like to offer this to all Krathari warriors who were wounded in the conflict. Admiral Tekvar was suspicious. Why would you help us? We tried to destroy you. Because, Admiral Chen said, that is what makes us human. We can forgive. We choose to heal rather than hate. Your wounded warriors were following orders. They deserve a chance to be whole again, the young Wong brother added. My brother would have wanted this. He always said that mercy is not weakness. It is the ultimate strength. The Krathari delegation was confused. This was not how wars ended. The victors were supposed to demand reparations, impose sanctions, humiliate the defeated. Instead, the humans were offering help. There must be conditions, Admiral Tekvar said. Only one, Admiral Chen replied, that this war ends here. No revenge, no retaliation, no future conflicts. We will even offer trade agreements, cultural exchanges, shared technology, but if the Krathari Empire ever threatens humanity again, we will not be merciful a second time. She pulled out another datapad and showed a holographic display. It was a recording from Earth's military command. The human general, a male with dark skin and gray hair, was speaking to troops. Stand down, he was saying. The war is over. I know many of you want revenge. I know you have lost family, friends, homes, but we are not going to become the monsters they thought we were. We are going to show the galaxy that humans can forgive, that we can build instead of destroy. That is how we honor our dead. The recording ended. Admiral Chen looked at the Krathari delegation. That message went to 8 billion humans. They listened. They stood down. Do you understand what that means? 8 billion individuals, all capable of the violence you witnessed, choosing peace. That is our gift and our warning. The treaty was signed within an hour. But before the delegations left, Zarkun had to ask a question that had been haunting him. The battle, he said to Admiral Chen. You said every human was ready to die. Was that true? Or was it a bluff? Admiral Chen smiled, and for the first time it seemed genuine, almost kind. Commander Zarkun, let me tell you something about humanity. We were at 30% military activation. If you had pushed forward, we would have gone to 50%, then 70, then 100. At 100% activation, every human between the ages of 16 and 60 would have been fighting. That is 4 billion soldiers. She paused, letting him absorb that number. But here is what your empire needs to understand. We never wanted to fight. Humans have a saying. We sleep soundly in our beds because rough men stand ready in the night to visit violence on those who would do us harm. We are all capable of being those rough men and women. But we prefer to be teachers, doctors, artists, parents. We only become warriors when we have no choice. The Wong brother spoke up. My brother wanted to be an engineer. He was 17. He died throwing a rock to protect others. Every human who died in this war had dreams that did not involve killing. Remember that. Back in the present, in the tavern, Zarkun lifted his arms. They were no longer mechanical. The humans had kept their promise, providing regeneration technology that had regrown his lost limbs. The new arms were slightly different in color, a constant reminder of the war and the mercy that followed it. So they just let you go? The young Velkari asked. After all that death? They did more than that, Zarkun said. They invited us to trade, to learn, to be allies. Within a year, human medical technology was saving lives across the galaxy. Their engineering was improving everyone's ships. Their art and music were spreading to every civilized world. A Gorvak warrior grunted. And their military? Still at 30% activation, Zarkun said. They maintain a defense force. They patrol their borders, but they have never attacked anyone. They did not become conquerors. They became protectors. But you call them the nightmare species, the Velkari said, confused. Because that is what they are, Zarkun replied. They are the nightmare of anyone who would threaten the innocent. They are the species that will turn farming equipment into weapons, teach their children to build bombs, and sacrifice themselves by the thousands to protect their home. But they are also the species that will heal their enemies, forgive those who tried to destroy them, and offer friendship to those who once brought war. He stood up, his full height making him tower over everyone in the tavern. 2 years ago, pirates attacked a Velkari colony, took 300 civilians hostage. The Velkari fleet was too far away to help. Do you know who responded? The young Velkari shook his head. Humans. A single human ship arrived within hours. 12 human soldiers rescued every hostage. They killed 60 pirates but managed to capture 10 alive for trial. Then they stayed to help rebuild what was destroyed. They asked for nothing in return. An old Gorvak spoke from the corner. My grandson was on a research station that suffered catastrophic decompression. The only ship close enough to help was human. They risked their own lives to save everyone. Not just Gorvak, everyone, even the Krathari researchers. More stories started flowing, warriors from different species, all with tales of human kindness, human heroism, human sacrifice. But underneath every story was the same understanding. These were the same humans who had turned their entire solar system into a weapon, the same humans who had taught their children to make bombs. Yesterday, Zarkun said, his voice cutting through the chatter, I received a message. The Galactic Council has voted. Humans are being offered a permanent seat on the Security Committee. They will be peacekeepers for the entire galaxy. The tavern erupted in discussion. Some were pleased, others worried. The young Velkari looked terrified. They are giving the nightmare species authority over everyone? No, Zarkun corrected. They are giving authority to the species that understands both mercy and violence. The species that can become demons to fight demons, and then become angels to heal the wounded. The species that every other race knows will protect them, because humans have proven they will die for strangers. He moved toward the door, then stopped and turned back. But remember this, all of you. Never mistake human kindness for weakness. Never threaten what they protect. And never ever harm their young. Because the moment you do, the moment you become a threat to innocent life, you will learn why even the Krathari Empire chose peace rather than face humanity's full fury. As he reached the door, the young Velkari called out one more question. Commander, do you hate them? The humans? After everything they did to you? Zarkun was quiet for a long moment. No, I respect them. I fear them. And I am grateful to them. They taught me that true strength is not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice not to. They showed me that mercy from a position of power is the greatest victory of all. He looked back at the room full of warriors. The humans have a saying that I have come to understand. Demons run when a good man goes to war. They are good. They are kind. They are generous. But they are also the demons that other demons fear. That is why they are the perfect protectors. That is why the galaxy is safer with them watching over us.